Who wrote the Bible? Where does it come from? What does it mean? Is there a group of people historically who are responsible for the Bible and have shaped our faith? What did they teach? And what can we celebrate as one human family about their teachings? This is Stan Matthews, and I'm here to tell you the story of the secret origin, coming to you directly from the land of origins, Greater Ethiopia, the oldest nation in the world. About 150,000 years ago, the rains coming from the Ethiopian highlands began forming the foundation of what is known today as the Nile River. About 7,000 years ago, the Nile River basin finally established its finishing point at the Mediterranean seas. All throughout this period of over 100,000 years, people from the Ethiopian highlands and all of East Africa settled along this highway, this massive river that would bring life, bring culture, bring faith for the people. And the people brought with them their culture, they brought with them their science, their economics, their laws, their morals, and their ethics. Most importantly, they brought their sacred science. They brought their faith. And so these people established the greatest, most storied civilization known to man. That civilization is the Kemetic civilization, what we now call the Egyptian high classic civilization. What are we here for? We're here to hear the voice of a scholar, Dr. Ahmed Osman, reveal what we call the secret origin, the origin of the patriarchs of the Bible, the origin of David, the person who established and reinforced the first global empire. We're here to hear the story of the dreamer, Joseph, the man who told his brothers, one day I would rule, the inheritor of an inheritance directly from Isaac. We're here to find out the secret origin of the man known as Solomon, the man of peace, the man of wisdom, the man of wealth and riches. We're here to find out the origin of a famous relationship he had with a queen of the south that we call Sheba today, but was from the land of Punt, which is present day Somaliland or Eritrea, that whole northern coast of the Horn of Africa. We're here today to learn the secret origin of the lawgiver, Moses, the person who I believe to be the most revolutionary thinker on the concept of the one God, the universal God that ever walked the earth. Here to learn the secret origin of the man called Joshua, his son, the son of Nun, who some believe may have been the example of the messianic leader that would have its full flowering in the first century in a revolutionary leader we now know as Christ. But the role model for the one who would call the people to salvation, stand as a messianic ruler, was Joshua. Dr. Osman's work, The Secret Origin, is a must-have for your library. It's a must-have for everyone's library because it demonstrates that these were historical, real figures And they had an impact on our social lives, our political lives, our economic lives, and our spiritual lives, even today. Get your copy of Secret Origin, but first enjoy what we have prepared for you. Thanks for coming, and enjoy Secret Origin. Good afternoon. This is Stan Matthews, and I welcome all of you to this very special opportunity to hear the words of a master of enlightenment as he unveils for us his thought process over a 50-plus year period to uncover, unravel, and reveal truths about our Bible and about our past that we may not have thought about or may not have dared to understand. I'm with Egyptologist and scholar Dr. Ahmed Osman, who has groundbreaking work that he wants to share with the world, and that he has shared over 5 centuries. And so we start today by asking him, why was it, Dr. Osman, that you thought that we should look at Egypt again and find, as we look at Egypt, the biblical characters coming to life in the personages of Thutmose III, who you regard to be the David of the Bible, Amenhotep III, who you regard to be Solomon of the Bible, Akhenaten, who you regard to be Moses of the Bible, and Tutankhamun, who you regard to be Joshua, or in some cases, maybe even Jesus. So let's start there. We are so happy for the work that you have done. There may be some who are not as pleased as they should be with you humanizing these giant figures, especially the one that we are going to talk about this day.
Moses the lawgiver. In your work, you say that Moses the lawgiver of the Bible is in fact Pharaoh Akhenaten of the 18th dynasty of Egypt, called by the Egyptians Kemet. You see similarities in the lives of these two figures that persuade you that they are the same man. And today, we get the benefit of hearing the evidence that you propose to demonstrate that Akhenaten, Pharaoh of Egypt, is in fact Moses, the lawgiver. Dr. Osman, why do you believe that Akhenaten is Moses, the lawgiver?
First of all, when I wrote my first book, I was trying to identify the time of Joseph, the patriarch in history of Egypt, and I came to identify him as the same character as Yuya, who was a minister of Amenhotep III, who ruled at the beginning of the 14th century BC, during the 10th pharaoh of the 18th dynasty. Once I have identified the time of Joseph in Egypt, then the next step was to look for Moses, because Moses came after Joseph. So what I did really, here I was helped a lot by Sigmund Freud, the Jewish, psychoanalyst who lived in Vienna and came to London in 1939 because he was afraid of the Nazi Germany and so on. Freud wrote a book. The last of his books was not about psychology, but it was about the history of the idea of the Moses and monotheism. It was called Moses and monotheism. In his book, he first said that the birth of Moses is similar in the Bible to the birth of other heroes of the past, like Oedipus of the Greeks and Romulus of Rome and Hercules and Sargon of Mesopotamia. Mm-hmm. All of these heroes were born, there was a threat on their life when they were born, so they were put in the water and they were saved by some poor families. They came from royal families and they were saved by poor families. And then when they grew up, they realized who their identity was. Mm-hmm. He said only in the case of Moses, instead of being born to a royal family and be brought up by the poor family, it was switched. The story was switched. Moses is supposed to be born by a poor Israelite family in Goshen, in Egypt, and be brought up in the royal palace. He said this must be, in his view, a kind of deliberate attempt to hide the true identity of Moses. He thought that Moses was an Egyptian. And at the time, really, after the discovery in 1924 of the tomb of Tutankhamun in the Valley of the Kings, a lot of understanding of the Amarna kings, Akhenaten, the father of Tutankhamun, and the other came to light. And his daughter Anna was visiting there, telling him all the information. Even he had some object from Egypt sent to him, and it's now in his museum in London. Anyhow, he was interested to know about Akhenaten, and he believed. He saw that the one God of Akhenaten, the monotheistic belief of Akhenaten, is the same. He compared it with the biblical Moses teaching, and he said this is the same thing. And he, because the idea at the time was that Akhenaten died after ruling for 17 years, he suggested that one of the followers of Akhenaten, Thutmose he called him, took the religion of Akhenaten and gave it to the Israelites in Egypt, and that was Moses. That was his belief. So it was Sigmund Freud really who made me try to look for that after Akhenaten. And when I came to see Akhenaten, obviously Freud, helped me going to Akhenaten, but I realized then, because Joseph Yuya was the grandfather, the maternal grandfather of Akhenaten. You see, Yuya, the daughter of Yuya, Tai, who was the daughter of Joseph, was married to the king of Egypt, Amenhotep III. So, and she gave birth to Akhenaten. So, he was an Egyptian, but he was also an Israelite because his mother was the daughter of Joseph, you see. So, so what happened is, we know that the Queen Tai was completely rejected. This marriage between the king and the queen and Tai, daughter of Joseph, was completely rejected by the Amun priest. Okay, you can have her as a wife, but not as a queen, because the queen has to be your sister from the royal family. However, the king insisted, and he brought earlier, after the marriage, he brought a son from her. She brought him a son called Thutmose. And this son, when he reached the age of 5, his father, Amenhotep III, appointed him as his prince, crown prince, to follow him on the throne. Soon after that, he completely disappeared. Obviously, we don't know. We know about him because some remains of him were found in the tomb of Tutankhamun. But how did he disappear? Where did he die? Was he killed? He disappeared. All what we know is that he disappeared completely. Obviously, the priests must have made sure for him to disappear. So when in the year 11 of his rule, Amenhotep III, what happened is, because the Israelites, the family of her father, Joseph, were living in an area called Goshen in northern Sinai, the Amenhotep III wanted to allow his wife, the queen, to be near her father's family. So in the city of Zaro, the border city of Zaro, in the same area of Goshen, northern Sinai, it's a border military city. He built her a royal palace there. And in the year 11 of his rule, he dug a pleasure lake. And during that time, he had some kind of a second honeymoon, and she became pregnant. So I can, although there's no evidence for that, I can imagine why the king would fear that if she brings, a boy, gives birth to a boy, it will make a new trouble between him and the priest, and he didn't want that. So I believe this could be the reason why he asked the midwives, if you find a boy, you can get rid of him, kill him or something, not a girl. So this idea is, if you read the Quran agrees with the Bible in the story of Moses' birth, except that he made the mother of Moses was inside the royal palace when the Pharaoh soldiers found the baby. So it was not coming from outside. It seems that the Queen Tai wanted to smuggle her son, because the midwives told her about the intention of the king. She wanted to smuggle him outside. Between her and her father's family was the lake. She wanted to smuggle him out, not in, as the Bible said. So, I mean, this is the idea of. That's why, at the same time, fearing on his life, she kept him away from the royal palace. The king and the queen Amenhotep III used to live in Memphis, near Saqqara, near Cairo, modern Egypt. But he started to rebuild a new large royal palace on western Thebes, the west bank of Thebes in Luxor, in Upper Egypt. He make a royal palace. It took him about 20 years, you see. And we could not see, the American archaeologists who dug the palace could not see any evidence of Akhenaten. He was not called Akhenaten as in first. He was called Amenhotep IV. Amenhotep IV. He could not find any evidence of because every prince, every queen, everything had a small villa in the compound of the royal palace. So only in year 16, when he reached the age of 16, that Akhenaten came to the royal palace in Thebes. Yeah, I mean, because his mother was afraid that he might be killed by the priest or something. So she kept him away, first in Zaro, in northern Sinai, near Goshen, and then with her brother, he was the priest of On, Heliopolis, the priest of Ra. And then when his father, Amenhotep III, became ill, sick, and she was afraid that she might die without appointing his son as his successor, she asked for him to come to the royal palace. He came, who was 16 years old, and only because he was able to marry Nefertiti, who was the daughter of the heiress, wife of Amenhotep III and Sitamon, Queen Sitamon. Because he married the heiress, Nefertiti, he was appointed by his father as his co-regent. So Akhenaten, Tutankhamun, Amenhotep IV was appointed as his co-regent with his father in Thebes. However, instead of pleasing treating the priests of Amun well, he did the contrary. He went to the Karnak compound. The Karnak is compound, have many shrines for all the Egyptian deities. So he built himself for his own god, Aton. When he came, he already had a new idea of God. He was not, Aton was his god. So he built a shrine for his god in the Karnak, at the back of the Karnak. And he did not allow anybody to come to his Aton in Karnak unless he denounced the other gods. And obviously the priests were very angry. They destroyed the temple. They forced his father to kick him out of Thebes. So he went with Nefertiti and some of his followers built a new town called Amarna, known as Amarna now, Tel Amarna, halfway between Cairo and Luxor. And he built his own Amarna city, and he built his own, established on the temple of Aton in Amarna, and all people, his family, worshipped Aton in Amarna while his father was ruling in Thebes. However, when his father died and he became the sole ruler of Egypt, he would not allow any other god to be worshipped in Egypt. So he sent his troops to close the temples, sack the priests, and confiscate their properties. And only Aton would be. even the name of all the gods were cut off from, even the name of Ammon in his father's name, Ammon-Hotep, he cut Ammon from his father's name on the walls and that. So it was he who made that. Okay, now what happened if we compare him with Moses? I mean, in the year 17, we know that we have a document saying that the year 17 of Akhenaten was the year 1 of Tutankhamun. So that's why in the early period they believed that Akhenaten must have died in year 17 and Tutankhamun followed him. But in my research, I came out to realize that he was not, he faced a coup d'etat and he had to give up his throne, abdicate his throne to his son Tutankhamun and go to exile. I mean, Alain Zivi, a French archaeologist, dug out the tomb in Saqqara of a lady called Maya, who was the nurse of Tutankhamun. And in the tomb of Maya, he found a picture on the wall showing Maya sitting on a seat, and Tutankhamun, he was 9 years old when he came to the throne, sitting on her lap. Behind them, the scene representing the ministry of Tutankhamun, the first ministry of Tutankhamun. This ministry included 6 characters. One of them was the minister of finance, was a civilian. But the other 5 were all generals of the army. The ministry, the government of Tutankhamun was 5 generals of the army. General Ai, General Horemheb, General Anin, General Ramses, and General Seti. And 4 of the 5 generals succeeded Tutankhamun on the throne. It is obvious that this was a coup d'etat, that there was, the military, with the help of the priesthood, made an attempt to overthrow because when all the temples of Egypt were closed, life in Egypt stopped. The temple was not only a place of worship; it was the hospital, the school, the official, course, and feasts were celebrated in the. So I think that more evidence came to confirm that when Flinders Petrie discovered evidence that in Sarabit, an area called Sarabit al-Khadim, a temple called Sarabit al-Khadim in Sinai, not far from Mount Sinai, was evidence of Akhenaten being there. He found the head of Akhenaten's mother, Queen Tai, in the temple of Sarabit, and he found a plate where, after Akhenaten, end of rule, the name of Aton was completely forbidden from Egypt. Horemheb made sure, the last king of the 18th dynasty, made sure that no mention of Aton at all. He even gathered all the followers of Akhenaten remaining in the country and put them in a prison, you see. So, however, during the first year of Ramses I of the 19th dynasty, we found at Sarabit al-Khadim a mention, when the king used to go to any area of the country, he used to make offering to the god of that area. Mm-hmm. And Aton was not, Hathor was the goddess of Sinai. Nevertheless, we found at the Sarabit al-Khadim in the first year of Ramses I, the name of Aten, although it was forbidden, indicating that Aten was still, that Akhenaten was living in exile in Sarabit al-Khadim. So this is another evidence. Now, when we go to the story in the Bible, we find that the Talmud, the Bible says, obviously, that Moses killed the Egyptian, and he was afraid that Pharaoh will punish him, so he fled to Sinai to live in Sinai for exile. But the Talmud says a different story. The Talmud was written during the first 5 centuries AD. It says that Moses, after after leaving the royal palace, he went south.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, south of Egypt was called Ethiopia. He went south to Ethiopia, and there he found a queen called Adonai, and her husband died, was killed in fighting, so he married the queen, and Moses, according to the Talmud, became a king for this in Upper Egypt for 9 years. Before he was asked to abdicate the throne to the son of the queen and go to Sinai for exile. So the Talmud makes him a king, you see. On the other hand, in the Quran, the story also differs from the biblical story that he fled from because he killed the Egyptians. He says that while Moses was in the city, somebody came from the border of the city warning him that there was a kind of some plotting against him. People are coming to kill him, and ask him to flee out of the city. So the idea, was completely different. So I think this makes a comparison between Akhenaten's life. All right. Now, after Tutankhamun came to the throne, he ruled only for about 10 years, and he was killed. And he was succeeded by General Ai, who was a maternal cousin of Akhenaten, a brother of Queen Tai. He ruled for 4 years, and he disappeared also without, we don't know how. He was not buried in his tomb. And then we have the last king of the 18th dynasty, Horemheb, who ruled for about 13 years. Horemheb had no successors, so he appointed another General Ramses to be the follower. Ramses became Ramses I, established the 19th dynasty, and because he came from Lower Egypt, from the very area of Goshen, the area of Zaro, he made his royal house in that area. Now we can imagine Akhenaten. We are always, we know about Moses taking a rod with him. And this rod is a little bit magical rod. It opened all the door for him, makes magical. But however, if we look at the scepter of the royal scepter in Egypt, it looks like a serpent, really. If you turn it around, it looks like a serpent moving. And if you have a scepter of royal scepter, how come a Bedouin guy coming from Sinai come and be allowed to enter, not only to enter the royal palace and encounter the Pharaoh himself, but the Pharaoh, instead of putting him in prison or killing him, he asks him to wait until he gets the priesthood, a priest to judge between the two of them. And according to the story, again in the Quran here, when the priest saw the scepter of Moses, they, bowed to him, accepting his authority, and Pharaoh had to kill them because of that. You see, so the whole idea is really, if you put it in historical terms, we find in the life of Akhenaten the same story of Moses. So this is what I came to. Obviously, he was not. When he challenged Ramses the first on the power. Obviously, Ramses did not agree to. Instead, he forced himself. He was a general of the army before becoming king, so he forced himself by force. Now, if you look at the area of Goshen at the time, it was surrounded by water all over the place. From the south and from the north, there were different lakes. Lake Timsah coming from Ismailia in the south, Banzala coming from the north, and then between northern Sinai and the valley of the Nile, there was a kind of a dug branch of the Nile there, guarded by. So you cannot cross unless. Yeah. So what the idea of going, miraculously, breaking the water, first of all, the Bible does not say it is the Red Sea. It says Yam. Yam is a lake, ordinary lake. So because the area surrounding the Zaro, where the Pharaoh lived, was lakes, surrounded by lakes. Moses, Akhenaten, took his followers and crossed these lakes. The water goes up to the knee, so they could flee that way. And instead of going north in the road of the Philistines, he went to the other direction. This is what the Bible says. When the chariots of Pharaoh followed, it was stuck in the mud in the lake, so it couldn't carry on. This is more realistic rather than magical. So I believe that this is.
Now let's talk, Doc, for a moment about. You mentioned their lives, and you mentioned this concept of monotheism, where his monotheism comes from. You say that his monotheism was influenced by his mother, Queen Tiye, his grandmother, Queen Tiye, and his grandfather, Joseph. Do you believe that as a boy he spent time with his grandfather and his grandmother?
There is a minor possibility that he saw Joseph, when he was a little child, really. He could not have been grown up when he saw him. But I think the idea of the one God that Akhenaten got, it was not through his father or his brother or whatever it is. It is his own concept. This is the first individual who can. What happened is the idea in the royal family of Egypt that the land of Egypt belonged to the god of Egypt. Amun-Ra was the god of Egypt, and they believe in the when the Pharaoh is born, he becomes the son of God, and we have the scene in the temple of Luxor or Menhotep III. We have the scene of all the steps from the time that the Pharaoh, before going to his wife, he has to go to the temple, be purified by the holy water, and then the priest will make chants and asking the spirit of Ammon to dwell in the body of the king. And then when they see a sign of that, they allow him to go to bed with his wife, so that the child born from this relationship is the son of the king physically, but the son of God spiritually. This is the concept of it. So because and if the queen was not the heiress, because the inheritance of the throne of Egypt goes through the female line, not the male line.
Right.
Whoever marries the eldest daughter of Pharaoh becomes the next Pharaoh, has the right to the next Pharaoh, to be the next Pharaoh. So the thing is, because the queen, I mean, God will marry her in a way, in the physical body of the king. So she had to be a special woman. So if the wife of the Pharaoh was not the heiress, God, Ammon, will not come to the body of the king. So the child is not the son of so he has no. So the priest told Akhenaten, "You are not a legitimate son of Ammon. You have no right to rule the land of Egypt." So he was faced by this point. So in return, he thought about why. I mean, I believe that the idea, the concept of a ruling God, of a powerful God, is the concept goes developed together with the concept of the ruler. In a small society, it's the head of the society, the chief of the tribe, the head of the town, the ruler of a country, represents the God, the image of a God in heaven. But it was during the 18th dynasty, for the first time in history, that Moses III established a great empire between the sources of the Euphrates in northern Syria and northern Sudan, you see. This was at the time, this was the known land of civilization at the time. This was all the land of civilization at the time. So, I mean, Akhenaten, in his background, must have thought, if I am not the legitimate son of Ammon, but Ammon is the ruler of Egypt, in whose name is the king of Egypt ruling the northern country and the southern country? And this brought him to the idea there must be a kind of a universal God, the God of all the lands, not only of Egypt. And that's why he said, Aton, in his own writing, he said, Aton is a God not only for Egypt, but also for the lands of the north and the lands of the south. It's a universal God. So he challenged the priesthood, said, I am not the son of Ammon. Who is Ammon? I am the son of Aton, who is the ruler of all the universe. I mean, this is the concept, yeah. I mean, this it only, not the only thing he got it from the Hebrew side, from the Israelite side, is that the Israelite patriarch did not have an image, a statue of their God. So his God had no image. Yeah, but he's a universal God. This is his own concept.
Of all mankind. Now, the next question is, Moses of the Bible is known as the lawgiver. The book of Exodus, the book of Deuteronomy are full with places where there are specific laws of worship, laws of eating, laws of believing, laws such as circumcision, are all how to give the offering in the temple. So Moses becomes known to all of us as Moses the lawgiver. Were there similar laws and mores and rituals that Akhenaten observed that are similar to what became known as the Ten Commandments?
Although Akhenaten changed the god, his god is different, but the rituals, he inherited the Egyptian rituals as they are. And if you look, this is what Freud realized, that all the rituals, all the behaviors of the Israelites, according to the teaching of Moses, are found in ancient Egyptian tradition. Even the ark, the ark was, they used to place the image of their God in the ark when they go out of the temple. So he, instead of the images of God, he put the Ten Commandments. All the Ten Commandments are found as they are in the chapter 1 to 5 of the Book of the Dead. Yeah, there's not. The Mosaic teaching. This was recognized by Sigmund Freud. The Mosaic teaching, as they are in the Bible, are the same as the Egyptian teaching of Akhenaten.
Thank you for that answer, Dr. Osman. Final thing we want to explore is, you touched on it a bit, this Exodus. This Exodus, did Akhenaten have a period where he and his followers were forced to leave Egypt and went somewhere else? You mentioned going to Sinai. You also mentioned going to Ethiopia, or the land of Punt, where he married Queen of Ethiopia, or Queen of Punt. Do you believe that this leaving with his followers, when he was forced to abdicate the throne, do you believe this is the Exodus of the Bible?
Now, the Exodus, we see from the history side, what does it mean, the Exodus of the Israelites? It means that a group of Semites leaving Egypt to going to Canaan. This is the idea. And the only thing found in Egyptian history is which confirms that from archaeological side, is the evidence of King Seti I. Ramses I did not rule more than a year and a half. In his second year, he died. And while he was being mummified, news came from the northern Sinai border that some Bedouin tribes are attempting to leave Egypt into Canaan. Canaan, they call it Canaan, to leave Egypt into Canaan. You see, so Seti I left his father being mummified and went there, and he scattered them and killed them. Some of them returned back to Sinai for the 40 years there, and some of them he brought them to be slaughtered in the Karnak temple. And I believe it was Seti I who killed Akhenaten there, because Akhenaten was not able to enter the promised land. Akhenaten died in northern Sinai. So I believe, and there is an indication, Professor Selin, the German biblical scholar, identified a kind of a killing over them on top of the mountain of Moses. And I think he was killed there by Seti I himself. And because of that, since that time, Seti become more a new story of Seti killing Osiris again emerged in Egypt from the 19th century on. So I think the physical evidence of Semite tribes trying to end, and after that we find them entering over a long period of time as smaller groups going to Jordan, East Jordan, then crossing into the Holy Land.
Now, these, if in fact Moses Akhenaten was killed there in Sinai by Seti or the troops, it means that among these Semites were also followers of Akhenaten. Does it not?
Yes, for sure. Again, Sigmund Freud recognized that. He recognized many Egyptian names within the people who left with Moses. Yeah, like Samir. I mean, there are many Egyptian names within the group of Moses. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Roseman, for this enlightening view of the life of the real Moses, Pharaoh Akhenaten, and the real Exodus.
Why this body of work? Why look at Egypt again? So Dr. Osman, as we close this part of the Secret Origin series, please share with your audience, with our audience, why you think making David a real historical figure, why making Joseph the dreamer a real historical figure, why making Solomon the wise man a real historical figure, Moses the lawgiver a real historical figure, and Joshua, or the Jesus model, a more historical, understandable figure. How would that promote greater fellowship and understanding in this world of war, misunderstanding, and in many cases, falsehood? How would this work, Secret Origin, foster greater brotherhood, greater alignment, greater fellowship and understanding?
In reality, Stan, I'm not making these characters historical, because if we believe in the stories of the Bible, I mean, David made a big empire between, they're giving a geographical location and time in history and so on. Jesus appeared as historical, Moses and so on. So all what I'm trying to do, I'm not inventing, I'm not producing something new. I'm just trying to see what is behind the story, what is the real historical events that were told by the Bible in the stories. You see, I believe that our religious beliefs, like our being, really have gone through an evolution. I mean, from a period to another period, from an era to another era. And that's why now I believe that our faith, our religion, is going to a new era. And we have to understand it according to this era. For instance, I'm not making it on my own. This is a must. So we have heard a few days ago that Pope Francis of Rome, Rome, you know, about 5 centuries ago, condemned Galileo for death, because he said that the earth goes around, that the earth is circle, not flat, and it goes around the sun. He was killed because of that. At the time, it was regarded as a heresy, something against. However, the Pope Francis 2 or 3 days ago said that he believed in the Darwin evolution ideas, and not only that, but he believed also in the Big Bang. I mean, he said the creation as it is in the Bible story, I mean, is not historical. We cannot take it as historical. This, we have to understand it in a different way. So all what I am doing, you see, I mean, in the beginning, when man was a primitive creature, I mean, each tribe had its own religion, its own God, you see, and each God, they believed that this God will help the tribe fighting another tribe to get the water or the food or whatever it is. Then, with time, we went through a village structure, a city structure, and a state structure. And each time, God has become, different. Then when we have an empire, Egyptian empire, the Roman Empire, the Islamic Empire, God became universal. However, it became universal within the limits of the empire. The China is not part of it, so it has another God. South Africa, and so on. But now we have come to realize through our, scientific understanding that the whole planet we are living in is one unit, and whatever happens in environment or weather or whatever it is does affect all of us. We can die, all of us, or live, all of us. We are one. So now is the time to see that God is a universal God. You can be a Christian, you can be a Muslim, you can be a Jew, you can be a Hindu or whatever it is. But if God has created the world, then this God is one for all of us. Although we come and see it from different views, if we have different ideas of God, but it has to be one for all of us. In this case, why should we fight? Why should we? Before my God, will help me to defeat your God. Now, if our God is a universal God, is for all of us, we shouldn't fight. We shouldn't hate each other. We should keep the planet, all the planet. I do not only try to protect my land and my country, but also your land and his land and her land. We are now, as the Pope said, we are all descendants of the Darwin evolution, and we all came, as a result, the whole creation came as a result of the Big Bang. We have a one source of our existence, and we have a one planet to live in, all of us. Why should we fight? Why should the Russians fight the war Eastern Europe for no reason? Why should the Chinese and the Americans have a conflict? Why should the Israelis and the Arabs have a conflict? Why should we do that? Why don't we sit down, all of us, and realize that we are belonging to the same planet, and we have to work together to protect us. You see, in a few hundred years, or maybe 1,000 years, we are working to destroy our planet. We are working to destroy the earth we live in. If we go on like we are doing now, our planet is in danger of completely destruction. So we have the chance now, because of our, look at NASA and the photograph they have for the universe. This is a jump, complete jump in the future. We can see our minor place within this universe. So we have to keep our universe. We have to keep our planet. Otherwise, we will all be destroyed. So I think now is the time to re-understand the mythology. The Greeks and the Romans had the Olympus and the gods fighting and whatever it is. This was at the time the understanding. Now, when with the Torah and the Quran and the Bible and so on, we started to believe that God created Adam and Eve about 600 years. Now we cannot do that. Now we have to rely on our modern scientific understanding, knowledge, to re-understand. The core of the religion is there. The only thing is how we understand it. We have to re-understand. So if they say Moses did so and so and so, Jesus, was Moses a real historical character, or was it a mythology like the gods of the Olymp? If he was a historical, if these characters, biblical characters, were real characters of history, then we should find evidence of them and details of their stories in history. And that's exactly what I've been doing. So I'm bringing people together and going into a new era. We are, whether I do it or not, maybe I'm just a voice crying in the. I mean, but at the end of the day, when the Pope Francis of Rome says that this is a great step to the future, I'm just telling you what is happening now according to our modern scientific understanding.
Well, we thank you for more than 50 years of work in this area of trying to further the cause of fellowship, brotherhood, and peace by making historical events more real, to give us a greater understanding of some of the events that we've been told about in sacred science and the holy books, you know, the Indian Bhagavad Gita, the Islamic Quran, the Christian Bible, the Jewish Torah. These are filled with stories, and if you can help us to make these stories more real, and look at the historical events in them and see if we can make the events more real and the characters more real. It doesn't change the stories. It just gives us a deeper insight into them. And so we thank you for this work. I encourage all of those who will see this video to get a copy of Secret Origin now. We are working with several platforms to produce a series and a featured film to foster, again, greater brotherhood, greater understanding, and greater peace. If you like today's content, then make the connection and subscribe to Matthews TV on our YouTube channel so you can continue to get great news about all that's going on in the Secret Origin community and also around the globe in the global Black community, the global brown community. This is Stan Matthews. I'll see you soon. Subscribe now.